Macmillan Audio presents The Furies by Natalie Haynes. Read for you by Zara, Ramm.
Act 1. Chapter 1. The first thing they'll ask me is how I met her. They already know how we met, of course, but that won't be why they're asking. It never is. I remember when Luke was training, he told me that you only ever ask a question if you already know the answer. Lawyers don't like surprises, least of all when they're on the record. So they won't be asking because they want to know the date, the time, the address, all the little details. They will have done their homework, I'm sure. They've spoken to Robert, my old boss, already, so they know when I arrived in Edinburgh and which day I started work. They probably have a copy of my timetable. If they wanted to, they could pinpoint our first meeting to the minute. They won't be asking because they want to know what I'll say. They'll just want to know how I say it. Will my eyes go right or left? Am I remembering or inventing? They'll be measuring my truth against the one they've built from other witnesses, gauging whether I can be trusted or whether I'm a liar. So when they ask, I'm not going to roll my eyes and tell them they're wasting my time. I'm not going to tell them that I can hardly bear to go over this again, that every time someone asks me, I have to live through it all over again. I'm not going to ask if they know what it feels like, holding up the weight of everything that happened. I won't make a fuss. It wouldn't help. I'm going to take a small breath, look straight ahead and tell them the truth. I can't get nervous and start rattling on about how I didn't plan to be in Edinburgh. I won't ask them to remember what had happened to me and why I'd had to run away from London, why I was in Scotland at all. I won't remind them that I could have had no inkling of how terribly things would turn out. Besides, even if I had, I wouldn't have cared. I didn't care about anything then. I'm just going to answer as simply as I can. I met them on the 6th of January 2011 in the basement room at 58 Rankeeler Street, and I wouldn't have believed any of them could do something so monstrous. This isn't quite true, of course. Even by the standards of the unit, they were a difficult group. But Robert had warned me that they would be challenging, so my expectations were low. I went to meet Robert the day before term began at the pupil referral unit on Rankeeler Street. The building was empty except for the two of us, but I had to pick up forms and files and registration lists, most of which were covered in post-it notes linking children's names to medical conditions. At first glance, at least half of them were allergic to something: nuts, pollen, air pollution, gluten, mold spores. They don't seem very sturdy, I pointed out, skimming the top few pages Robert had just given me. His office was a huge, high-ceilinged room whose elegant proportions had been sliced in two by a partition wall. One half had been converted into his secretary's office. It was lined with filing cabinets from the door all the way to the far wall. In front of these stood her symmetrical desk. A computer in one corner was matched in the opposite one by 3 wire trays, balanced on top of one another and marked in, out, and pending. All of them were empty. Next to them was a picture of 2 young children, dark-haired and grinning in front of a loch in the pouring rain. The frame was clearly handmade, in bright, misshapen purple clay, presumably by one of the children it contained. Robert's office was the yin to Cynthia's yang. Bulging files were piled up on every flat surface, including the floor. Torn scraps of paper with names or initials were balanced on top of them. Where Cynthia's only light source was the greenish long-life bulb overhead, Robert's room had 2 huge sash windows which looked out onto Rankeeler Street. Look up to the left, and you could see Salisbury Crags, the dark cliffs which glower over Edinburgh, reminding you that there will be no nonsense here. The windows were framed with thick theatrical curtains. Their dark...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?